Okay, so this is, just hit record and it should start.
Good meeting, guys.
So this, this is an official meeting, so we'll do it the right way. This will be our last meeting for the year, though. We'll start with roll call. Beth, if you want.
Beth McFarland here.
Tommy Grant here.
Terry O'Connor here.
JP Martin here.
Brady Oxender.
Eric Fisher, Peter.
And so we do have a quorum. We don't have minutes, we'll have them in the January meeting. We've been busy getting elected as council people, congratulations.
Congratulations.
And grad school with toddlers is not a smart thing to do when you also want to be making minutes. So with that, what we're gonna focus on this meeting, hopefully everybody had a chance to review the council work session that happened 2 months ago now, about the lakes. We are required per code as planning and zoning to review and approve or disapprove of basically major changes to village spaces. So what that process exactly looks like, we're still figuring out, but we know that we're going to have to weigh in if something substantial is going to happen with the lakes. Something that would change, sizes, shapes, topography, anything like that. And so Eric's gonna give a briefing presentation update of some sort, just to let us know where we are, and then we'll talk a little bit about where council is likely to be headed and what we can do to make sure that things are open and transparent and legal and move along as we hope.
So, all right, happy last meeting of the year for P&Z.
We did it.
Real quick, go through all the members at this stage, because I know some people in and out, because I want to send this around, because I do not have connectivity to my team.
Right, so everybody here, and then Rainey is non-voting and not here. And then the mayor, of course, and then outgoing councilperson Wolf.
So, are you going to be our P&Z liaison?
They'll sign that. They'll sign that if you, they'll take volunteers, so.
We're working on that, I think, at the moment.
We're gonna fight it out.
I think that's
So,
Rainey.
He really wants
Conger,
it. I really want it.
R-A-N-I.
Right back.
No.
battle.
Yeah, she's got
Some
one.
robots.
Yes.
The battle of the-
Not full, just to separate, just so we don't hold up the meeting. What I'm sending around to you is what council is currently focused on for an alternative that Mr. Flickinger brought up at the 9/27 meeting, where they were talking about different lake options. There's a number of improvements that they need to do to the lakes. Everybody brings up the dredging, yada yada, but it's not. It's obviously dredging in and of itself is not the solution to what happens to the lakes every so often. And forgive me, I'm not 100% used to our setup yet. I thought I had a connector piece for my laptop. I'll have to make sure they have one here. I have one at home and I didn't bring it. So that's why I had to email this around this evening. But essentially, most other options for the lakes are very expensive. Even for the dredging alone, they're looking at, I think a number of $750 million plus.
It was $4.7 million to dredge both lakes at the right amount, which takes 5 months. They will shut down Minerva Lake Road for 5 months. So there's that. We cannot afford $4.7 million.
No.
So option number 2 is that if we took both lakes, did a 50% grade, again, 4 or 5 months, shutting down Minerva Lake Road. That was, correct me if I'm wrong here, I want to say $3.7 or $3.4 million, something like that. We do not have that. Option number 3, correct me if I'm wrong, if this is option 3 or 4, something like that. We do the South Lake, make that healthy. I think that was option 4 actually. South Lake is fully done. This lake is healthy. We take the silt put it over there on that side and fill that lake in with dirt.
Turn it into, you'll see it on the way it was presented as a park.
Yeah.
No, thank you, JP, he attended the meeting that night, so.
I was there.
Yeah,
Oh,
I did not, so I
It was,
appreciate you jumping in.
Yeah.
It was the cheapest one was option 4, $2.2 million. We can barely afford it because we got 1.7, 1.9, something like that, if I'm not mistaken. But we would at least have a south healthy lake and we could do this. So I have option 4A and 4B, which I really want people to know, which is we basically take this last option, which we can afford, and we just reduce it to a 50%. So whatever, the lack of a better terminology, as you're driving down the street, the storefront, whatever that word is, you look over and you see a lake, this little area, 30%, 40% of this giant, whatever that is, and then keep this part here, but leave a little bit of lake. That way we can have both lakes. You take this whole, well, this river goes up, it goes up to what they call, what is that called, a canal? Is that the right word? But we call it a canal, and it's like this valley, and there's these walls. But why even mess with the walls? We can just make it a culvert, fill it in with dirt, put a pathway on top, save a bunch of money, is my idea.
So the reason, yeah, and so filling in the north lake is the best option because the most expensive part of the dredging is hauling very
Yeah.
heavy, very wet dirt and, organic material out of here. That's the most expensive piece.
Because the dirt has to be taken out, and then
And
the dirt has to be
Dry,
Right.
yeah, and then brought
They have to
back.
add
right.
some gypsum chemical to it
Yeah,
and let it
it's all
dry.
correct, that is correct.
Because they
It's
can't
expensive.
haul it away.
Yep.
We can't pay somebody to haul it away and pay them to take our dirt until it's dry dirt.
Correct.
It's like the most,
It's very, yeah, it's a little convoluted, but it is unfortunately the reality of the world we live in for lake dredging. So,
So that was the fourth option?
that's what they call, that's what Mike called alternative 4, which is what's sent to you in the email, so that you can kind of see that visually.
That has like a little, is that water?
There'll be a little
channel
stream,
in there?
basically, there's a channel, again, that comes through because there is water flowing from the north. And the lakes work as giant detention basins for a number of neighborhoods, not just Minerva Park, so that's why all this stuff comes down to us anyways. It just is really expensive. And council, I think, from listening to the meeting, obviously, a number of members were very positive. Mr. Wolf's not here to speak to his positivity, but I think he was very positive on it too. The issue is, and I have to have a technical conference on Friday this week. There's always, we thought we'd get beyond some of the legal caveats, as we work through, doing our due diligence on this particular project. When they originally dredged this lake last time, I'm sure nobody thought about this. They didn't, but now we have a real engineer who looks into this stuff. So he's telling us in his initial review that we would have to go through an EPA permitting process in this case because, lo and behold, the EPA, which I think is a little arbitrary, but sometime in the past, this designated this, at least the South Lake, as being part of a larger watershed. And so that kicks in any number of legal reviews and permits required for it. So we'll get more scoops as we dig into that. But unfortunately, that in and of itself, to go through the EPA's permitting process, and I have, part of the discussion is I don't think these lakes are not what the EPA thinks they are. I think somebody looked at them at some point and designated them after they long predate the process that currently exists. I think the feds look at stuff from a 40,000 foot level and then they're like, oh yeah, there you go, and they put it in the book. Unless it's in the book, I don't think they noticed us a long time ago. They didn't tell you. You had no way to comment on it potentially. I don't know, right? It's a long time ago. But these lakes clearly predated all of the current regulations. And we would argue that these are glorified detention basins and therefore not subject to that kind of legal scrutiny. But I'm being told by the environmental attorney that's probably a long shot, even if we're right? And they both cost money, right? It costs money to fight the EPA, it costs money to go along with the process. So we have to assess which one's better. To go with the
Federal
process.
EPA?
Yes.
Okay.
To go with, I think the state the state EPA does a lot of the legwork, like a lot of EPAs do for the states, but at the end of the day, you have federal regulations regarding watersheds, right? So,
If it does get classified that way, does that open up opportunities for other funding
I don't think
to
so.
assist? I don't know,
Just to go through the EPA process alone adds $800,000 to our bill.
What?
Yeah, see what I'm saying? It's a form of highway robbery, in my opinion, but you know.
Hold on. So to fill that lake in with dirt is gonna cost us $800 million?
No, not this lake. That lake, actually, we think we're okay. To dredge this lake, we have to go through a permitting process to dredge it. The people who did it the last time didn't check with anybody. They didn't have an engineer, I don't think. They just went.
We just did it, yeah.
They just did it.
How long ago did that, when
They just
did
did
that
it.
one occur?
One of
Well,
the former
before-
councilmen would have.
It would have been 19, I was like 10 or 11 years old. I remember like blocking off the road. That machine,
Right.
that dredger was so big, it took up half the lake. It just moved like, that was it.
Right.
It was
So it's
insanely
been
huge.
like decent amount.
It's supposed to be done, by the way, this is $4.3 million or whatever it is. This is supposed to be done like every 20 years. I don't know how many years past or whatever.
So right now, you have a wonderful bog forming out there. And, you know, it's about a foot deep. And, you know, people don't like that term, but essentially, you call it what you want. But you've got a very shallow body of water with a channel that's about several feet deep where most of the water runs from point A to point B down here before it empties out of the dam. And, you know, those are our current challenges in front of us. I think most people are big fans of this alternative 4 because A, it's cheaper, B, it allows us to make interconnectivity that we've talked about between Jordan Road and here a lot easier. There's an expense with doing it, you know, if we have to cross the lake, put in a bridge, that kind of thing. I mean, those things cost money, hundreds of thousands of dollars too. So I mean, you're weighing your cost benefit, you know, what you're getting in either case. This way, we can just put a pathway down on top of the fill. So,
It would also solve all of our Park Lane connector.
right.
Would be.
It's a good alternative. We're still in the middle of due diligence, essentially to get back to process if we can proceed forward in a productive manner. Council would start they have to start a planning process right from the get-go, because if we go through EPA's process, that's going to take a significant amount of time. That's a 9 to 12 month period, hands down, no problem. And so we have to get our permits prior to doing the dredging. We also have to have our money from our TIF district encumbered in a certain period of time by spring of 2025 to meet criteria. So we have a few challenges to go through before we get there. But this body would start any recommendational review about the same time council's going to be engaging the engineer. So you'll be getting stuff at the same time. I think council wouldn't, or you know, we wouldn't be able to start P&Z and then council to review it. They're going to have to do it kind of simultaneously. So in order to get things done in a timely manner, if the council chooses to move forward. So,
Well, it has nothing to
What
do
is the
with.
people's property rights? How far do those go down over on that one?
they do not have any, there's 15 or 20 feet in any direction around the lake. If you look at the parcel map, Franklin County, you can see it. People probably don't know that, right? But they'd have to be noticed, and we'd have a surveyor mark where, you know, the property lines are. But we own a significant portion of ground from the water up to into those parcels.
Pickleball court out there.
What's that?
Pickleball court.
Well, it's like the only way to create more green space in the legacy section.
Right, you're absolutely correct.
And the fact that it is right across from the community building makes for just amazing opportunities, right? You have the path that connects, you put a little gazebo out there, and then see what else you want to do. And for village events, there's no reason that
Right.
you couldn't, have an officer directing traffic and basically crossing guard and have people going back and forth, and like it's a really cool opportunity.
Yeah, we could also do, midpoint cross there too. I mean, you can sign it, you can put flashers.
Yeah.
You put a couple speed bumps in front of it, you can force people, like those wide ones, make the humps, whatever you want to call them. There's ways to mitigate, which will help slow down folks on River Lake Road anyway that are flying through. So we have a few challenges to go through this. I'm there's a lot of thoughts, on both my side and the engineer engineers as well as the attorneys, so we just have to kind of work through those. One thing we know is that North Lake was not designated this way, so we know we can fill it in, probably without
Right.
a permit. The issue is, and again, I don't think from a maintenance standpoint, this is of course my opinion and from experience, I don't think we need a permit to, you know, of the full magnitude to dredge an existing, what we consider to be a detention basin or a lake, but we'll see how that argument goes. And maybe there's a lesser permit, right, that allows you to maintenance the lake. Because the lake is supposed to be a certain depth, it's, you know, to be, and we've dredged it before, and they're like, well, you should have done that, well, they did, so, you know, right? There's gonna be that, there's gonna be an ongoing discussion at the end of the year, so we'll have to see where this all leads. And hopefully we have some good news for January 1.
I have a question.
So just a quick, is there anyone who's looked into H2 Ohio, the state program?
I don't think so, because they're still kind of diving into the weeds
Okay,
on the legal aspects.
we absolutely need to do that. It's per project grant funding up to 100%, a minimum of $50,000 with no maximum.
Really?
I mean, I'll let you read the potential eligibility, but it's like everything.
Interesting.
And this is like the governor's baby of the last 2 or 3 years.
Hydrological enhancement.
Like we could class, the very bottom one of the list.
Right. I mean, since we're designated as a existing wetland for all intents and purposes.
Right.
We can be hydrological enhancement of existing wetland. I mean, there's all kinds of things. we
Yeah,
can
so
do.
that's something to look at to see if maybe there's some free money from the state, and we have
Interesting.
legislators who,
Want to help?
you know,
out?
we have 2 legislators who can't help us by making laws,
Right, but they can help us.
but
out.
they can help us navigate the system and are willing. So that's something, H2 Ohio is definitely something we need to
All right.
look into hard.
Well, I guess that would be the thing too, is if, instead of making that land, if we make it a wetland, that.
Well,
like-
the problem remains that
Expenses.
you've got to do something that is, you know, the greatest amount of good to the largest amount of people for the longest amount of time. And if we use one-time free money and get everything looking great for the next 10 years, what happens in 10 years?
Right.
That said, getting rid of a lake is pretty permanent.
Right.
So there's a lot of thought that needs to go in it. But we need to be, when the time comes to act, we will have a role. So we need to make sure that we're being kept as up to date as council, because they're not gonna be able to, you know, to have their final vote unless we have, as we continue to read through the code and figure out exactly how we have to weigh in, we will have to weigh in. So that actually puts us in a position of, you know, a little bit of power to be able to have a seat at the table, and be a part of the conversation. Which means I want to ask now, does anybody think that, like, filling in the North Lake is a non-starter for them?
So water would still flow,
Right.
there'd still be and is that the
Be a
main
stream.
source that like fills this one, or is there still?
No, most of
other
the water
sources
comes in
that
off
come-
of here. Like some of the reroute that goes on now, like what they're doing with the Jordan Road project, some of that water comes back into that North Lake. I mean, that was all part of when they repair those pipelines, they do feed back into there and it comes that way down into the South Lake as well. You know, and I will simply state, you know, the conceptual idea has been put in front of people. I just like JP mentioned, I don't know what it ends up as. There may be a holding pool of some type at the end of the day. There could be any number of design options that go into this, you know, because they have to engage, you know, obviously a number of professionals in the process. I think you're gonna get the same, again, like I said, timing wise, you're gonna get the same plan sets that the council's gonna get. And obviously there'll be specific minutes from those meetings, you know. And then you guys can you'll be on a simultaneous course to help out with the recommendation. Maybe kind of almost like a live thing. You see it 1 week and you're like, all right, we like that, let's pop up a recommendation on this. You know, I mean, you could do it piecemeal, you don't have to wait till the whole plan. You could say, yeah, P&Z says good. That may be the best way to go, quite frankly.
So, yeah, we'll all just have to, you know,
Or go to the meeting and you could just have a meeting later. I mean, not
Yeah.
giving anybody any more time, but. That's, sitting in that Lakes meeting was not only informing, but I was screaming inside because I really didn't have the thing to say because I'm just a guy. I'm just gonna make that council meeting a little bit because I have questions.
No,
Yeah.
it's to ask questions,
Yeah.
so.
So that's, we don't have a lot to do this meeting other than, you know, yeah, everybody kind of is almost as up to speed as council at this point. Council has a lot of figuring stuff out to do. I know you guys have a lot of backroom stuff to do, and then we will have our part to play. So if you have the time and energy to look at the council agendas beforehand, and if there's something that might pertain, see if you can't tune into the live stream or watch it later, just so that we're on top of things, because we are in a position where we could hold things up if we're not ready. And as we learned with this building and other things, once decisions are made, the longer you wait before you enact them, the more expensive and the more difficult things get, so.
They also talked about the space from the lake, about trees being removed because a lot of the trees that.
Yeah,
are
they
next
fall
to
in the lake, it costs us a lot of money, and
Right.
it's problematic.
And to mitigate this from happening again, or not happening again, but slow the process down, you might have to create.
Buffers, yeah, open buffer zones.
That's
So-
kind of a green space changing thing.
Right,
Yeah.
it also allows the opportunity to have free reign or walk around the lake.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, you can have a pathway, there's all kinds of nifty things you can do once you have that space created.
I think a lot of residents will not be happy though.
Well, that's what the.
But I get it, it's one of those things to think about and be mindful of.
I just wanna say, out of the 4 options that are available, the 1, 2, and 3, they don't even count because we can't afford them at all. And the only way we can even afford option 1, which is keep both lakes, is maybe take it to a levy and then have residents, what is it, like $200 or $300 a year check out?
It's just
Per-
when you do the math.
It's
you're
just,
like,
yeah. And that comes down to how many residents are gonna be like, oh, I'll throw down $40 a month to keep our North Lake that.
Well, the other option, which maybe it'll be discussed, is you don't do anything.
Yeah.
The lake maintains as it is, I mean, if again, it's shallow, it doesn't ever have the fish you want, and stuff like that, but
It
it
will naturally turn into whatever
it
natural.
is what it is, I mean, we've
Yeah.
shown examples that look gorgeous, when you maintain, the metro parks and stuff that have these kind of shallow bodies of water, and again, people say the word bog, don't like it, but essentially, it's a very pretty, and it's a functioning, has a lot of wildlife, and it functions properly, right? It is an option, because then you save your 1.5 million, the village has other priorities, i.e. pool, for example, is one, that they need to do things with, and the next council is gonna have to think through a few of those, because your time is limited on your money that you got from the TIF bond.
So why isn't that listed as number 5? Why isn't that one of the,
Well, they haven't, you're gonna have the next council get to that coming to Jesus moment, right? And that, for the 2 council members, because there was a lot of people that didn't like the word bog, and they didn't like that option when there were lake people that came. I think Mr. Curl actually invited former Councilman Curl invited the guy from OSU, if I recall correctly. And we showed a number of different options about, and he did actually, it was a very nice presentation.
Do you know what that was?
I'd have to go back and look. I'll ask Barb, but it was a good presentation. There's good material, which I'm sure is going to resurface here regarding that, regarding the lakes and the health of the lakes and stuff. Because, again, it functions in one ecosystem like this, and it functions. People would have always spoken. I would love to see an 8-foot deep lake that I can go fishing and stuff like that. Well, yes, but it costs X dollars. It's just the discussion here from a learning experience. It's a wonderful building. It's turned out great. It cost the village $3 million. The solution we had in 17 cost 1.5 in total. That's how life works, If it's what the people wanted, this is what they got. So,
When I heard about, I'm gonna keep it real, when I heard about option 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, they're all 4 or 5 bad options as far as I'm concerned. Anything to do with messing with tampering with the lakes, and not just leaving it au natural the way I remember it as a kid, it's upsetting in the sense that I want to keep our North Lake right across from our historical marker. The fact of the matter is, I've been thinking about this for quite some time. It's nice to have something, but we can't afford to keep that North Lake. And this isn't just $4.7 million now. This is ongoing every single
Right.
20 years.
right.
So,
And you have to go through,
Yeah.
you have to go through the permit, that adds cost, so we're gonna have all the info, but it's expensive.
so as much as it pains me probably being the oldest resident in this room right now, to give up on that North Lake. I'm not giving up on it entirely, but I want people to realize it is not financially feasible to have, and two wise people once told me it was better for the neighborhood. That's a hard pill to swallow, I think, for especially me. Filling the North Lake in. Like I said, my option was if we could, everything in this picture, like you guys seen, is great, but just keeping a little bit of like a pond, something to throw a coin, I don't know, anything, for God's sakes. You know? And then on this side of the lake, maybe reduce the size. Let's say it's 100% right now. Well, maybe only reduce it 90%. That way we're building the walls back up on the side, the shoreline, like it used to be. That's, you know, been eroding over time. I don't know if that's going to cut down costs or just actually increase it, because you got to do more stuff on the sides. But there's ideas to toss around if we're shooting out $2-some million. You know, that's a lot. But yeah, this is me. I hate to say this. This is probably the best financial solution and best probably solution for the neighborhood over a period of time. And that's hard. At least, I don't know. So it's a lot to think about, not just for council members, but also P&Z on, you know, are we gonna ask these residents, do you guys wanna shell out $300 or whatever it is, you know, a month to keep a North Lake that you don't get to go over alive? And I don't think how many people are gonna wanna, they're not gonna wanna foot that bill, they're realistically not.
No, that's
I know.
a political loser.
If you ask me a question, do we keep the North Lake and fill it in, I'm gonna tell you keep it, but I don't wanna pay for it. And I can't, you know, I mean, that's just being honest, like.
I mean, the other side of that for me is how do you make sure that you can extend a period longer than 20 years?
Yeah,
What can you do to manage that in a better fashion?
And if we're gonna fill in that North Lake with dirt, I wanna make it grand and well worth doing so, cause that's history. That part matters, you know? It matters to a lot of the old school residents.
Put a lot of native plants on that land.
We could definitely do a lot of native plants on that land. We could definitely do that.
But that's, you know, that's the other thing, is that right now, when it's not covered in geese, it's beautiful to look at. And
But
without
have,
putting money into it, how long will it be beautiful to look at?
we don't even know.
And so if you could do something permanent where, you know, as long as Brian's mowing it, it's gonna be beautiful to look at.
Yeah.
Then that's, you know, that's the long-term investment that, you know, your grandkids end up playing in that field as opposed to looking at that lake. So it's a trade-off for sure. But this meeting, you know, again, the whole point is we're gonna matter in this decision in a way that planning and zoning usually doesn't. And so if we've got ideas, we should make sure that they're being expressed. There's no reason to think that in this situation that the members of council are gonna have any ideas that are better than the members of planning and zoning. They're gonna have a little bit more information than we are, or a little bit sooner anyway. But we're gonna need to make sure that we're as comfortable, you know, as mostly voting members. One of you will likely be a voting member, hopefully, in January. You know, so if people are mad, they're gonna be able to come back to us. This isn't something that we can say council did it. So we need to make sure that we're happy with it too. So that's, we're kind of beating a horse at this point, but this is gonna be big. This is gonna be the, you know, this is gonna be a big thing.
Big thing.
If it moves forward in this way.
And I had said this when I had campaigned, that I wanted to do things like coffee with council. And I mean, even I think P&Z people being at that meeting.
Everyone just sit down and
about
so, yeah.
a couple of sessions, because the last thing I want is to do something without hearing what people have to say about it.
Exactly, yeah.
Like I want people to be like, gosh, I'm tired of hearing about these lakes, what's going on, you know, like I want them to be,
Yeah,
okay,
you
I
do something
don't
like
like
that, everyone will over our heads without asking, you know, and at least explain to them why we have, like, we don't really have options here.
Yeah.
And if we are gonna do this, let's do it grand. Like, I had 45 wonderful years to stare at that lake and never did anything with it. Let's make these 45 next years that someone gets to play on it, and if they're not gonna play on it, do whatever they're gonna do on that land and make it the best 45 years for the next generation, you know? And maybe if we get a little pond with koi fish in it or something on there, for God's sakes. And remembrance of what the North Lake was, I don't know, like,
Definitely get a koi pond.
I got a fountain in my backyard
that.
that the Volpes put in, Reno's dad put in.
Just throw that over here.
We get this all done, I will let you dig it up, and, because I don't want it anymore.
I think like, a lot of it is like, for me, it's like, I fear the change, but at the same time, I think that, just like this municipal building, look how great it came out. So I think that we all put our heads together, we'll make this the best damn, the best darn.
Whatever it is.
Whatever it is
It's
we're
not a
doing,
dam, it's a
yeah.
pond.
No.
We're not putting another dam over there.
Yeah, no more dams.
So the other thing, unless there's more than anybody'd like to say on,
I just had, did they address the other lakes? Like, if you were saying that this lake is 20 years, you have to dredge it, now, how many lakes did we add?
Those lakes are detention
Tenley
basins.
ponds?
So they're considered detention
They are
basins.
strictly detention basins.
And so you don't ever have to dredge them to keep
They're
them?
not the same as this lake. No, there's some maintenance, but most detention basins, they will have a little silt buildup, but it's not the same, right? So that what happens in our case is there's a great amount of velocity from the city of Columbus because of the way this is designed. They built this one in the middle of a waterway, which is part of the problem, which is why it locally got its designation, right? Because it's an attached.
Because of the creek that comes down through.
Right, so that's a legitimate waterway. Then, of course, with some of the older designing, they dump all of that water in there, and a lot of it doesn't slow down, right? So in the older designs, even in our old one here, they sit in detention basins for a while, they wait, they absorb themselves, they flow out, they overflow. But the hydrological velocity here is crazy, right? And that's why we get so much trash and silt and everything, and it gets worse every year. And so it continues to build up and build up, because the pre-designing to this point is what causes us a headache, right? Stuff that's not done to modern standards for the previous 50 or 60 years, and even longer for the older section here. But our main problem is coming in from the west, right? That's our main problem.
And because it's coming from them, they're not responsible for any,
They tell us to jump in our legs, essentially, right?
Yeah.
That's because we complain, trust me, we complain about the trash coming in, we have to,
Yeah.
there's nothing we can do about it. Almost just like, go away,
yeah.
right? We're not helping you with that, that's not our problem, so.
and then I imagine, as far as the ponds in the new section, for the
They
time
don't
being.
really have any,
there's-
creeks or anything
Not-
flowing.
Right, and then on top of that, they don't have the old growth trees
Right.
that are taking longer than they could to, that are taking longer than they could to, all the leaves and everything
There's a great deal of
decomposing
dynamics
and, yeah.
with this that occur. The new subdivision is designed with more modern standards. All of the catch basins in the rear yards, lead to a pond or two, but that's it, they're supposed to. And then they just kind of sit there and they percolate into the soil, and then if there is a great deal of 100-year flood, it overflows through the stuff.
Wastewater.
Pipes, yeah, and off it goes. So, and then it all goes down into this creek as well, but we hold back most of it before. So, anyways, it's a bit of a different problem, which, as noted, is not going away. We do have ways to stop the trash flowing in, which is good, but that in itself requires maintenance. We can catch trash, but that's going to be another person that's got to clear out the trap, and
Yeah.
up by the road, every so often, and it'll keep it from getting here.
It makes me want to have one of those environmental moments where you collect the trash for 6 months and then you take it to a Columbus City Council meeting and you go, hey, listen, let's work together to help us help each other. We're just your poor little brothers downstream.
Right, and then you dump it all on their desk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, not directly. I don't know. I know one of the city council members, so I'm like, I wonder if that would, provide any, I don't know if it's leverage per se, but at least a discussion to go, hey, who do we talk to? Is there something?
Yeah, and I wonder, about trying to get other partners, Morpsey kind of stuff involved to help carry some weight, but so much of everything is
Pathways.
Columbus.
Right. Yeah, more people love is pathways. I love pathways.
I'm sure this creek goes right by their new pathway they're gonna build.
Well, it does. We're gonna get a pathway from some of that money too. We can pass there.
Dump all our trash on
Probably
their
not
pathway.
next year, we'll get some money. so, which will be good. We've got a project submitted already, so.
So was there a time, did you say there was a timeline with the TIF that we had to hit?
We do. With the bond, you have to encumber the money by a certain point in time from a project standpoint, otherwise you'll incur some penalties and stuff like that. For us, it's gonna be April 25 to where we have to, we have to get some final, we didn't think we'd be in this position, so we're also getting obviously some confirmation from the attorneys on that too. Generally, people spend their money within their 3-year time periods that they enact, that they sell the bonds and, spend their money. Because those rules are in place to keep municipalities from hoarding bond money. They want you on a bond, they want you to spend it on projects, right? So, in this case, we're going to be tight on our timeline.
We pay off the other half and then get another one.
It costs a lot of money. It costs tens and tens of thousands of dollars, unfortunately. That's the reason that we want to spend it. So, but it's one of those things. I'm sorry.
Cool. Moving on to the green space master list discussion. I sent out the kind of the updated list. What I would like to do, so just to give the lay of the land, Councilperson Wolf will no longer be the liaison, as he will no longer be a council person. So that means we will have a new liaison. It is possible, and I'm hopeful that it will be one of these two. If it is one of these two, then that will create an opening as a non-voting member. And potentially, I know that it's a lot of work, and so potentially we might lose another one of them as a non-voting member and have some openings. What I'd like to do is, hopefully the mayor has some people in mind and we can get folks installed. So the way the planning and zoning ends, this year ends, we are done. The mayor then has to call our first meeting. We have elections, and then we move forward. When that new council moves forward, or when that new planning and zoning moves forward, the hope is any new members, my thought anyway, is to have any new members weigh in on that sheet, that grid, so we've got clear directions on a hierarchy of what we as now, 9 people think we care most about for village green space planning. And then from there, really see what we can tick off. I've done some fun math with bat houses and things like that, and I think that
I'm still wondering, how did that get that?
what?
How did the bat house is way up at the top?
It's easy.
Oh.
It's cheap. It's fairly permanent.
Ineffective.
It can
Did
be.
you say in or?
And effective.
Oh, they
It
said
can
it's
be-
ineffective. I'm like, why would?
It can be awfully cost. I mean, I'll get on my soapbox right now. We're spending what, $8,000? We budget like $8,000 a year for mosquito spraying, and no one in the village is like, "Sweet, it's mosquito spraying day," right?
Damn, they're coming.
For
Tiffany, but,
well, it's only because.
because she doesn't like that.
But with like a $1,600 investment,
Right.
plus getting Brian to install these things. So there would be some, if he's got to pour footers and put poles up, maybe that cost doubles, right? So let's say you spend $4,000 in 1 year. We could have 5,000 bats in the village. And things bats love is open green space. They love being near water, like having, water right near them to drink.
Food source.
They love, yeah. And so you put them here, they have fairly broad areas. You can have, one of these houses that's like 2 feet by 3 feet by 9 inches can house like 250 to 500 bats.
Right.
And when you have a wonderful place like a bat house for a bat, they don't want your attic, they don't want your garage, and then they'll eat, what is it, like 500 to 1,000 bugs a night each?
Okay, I'm sold.
Crush it.
I'm sold.
And so now, like, you don't have to spray for mosquitoes, and you have saved the village $8,000 per year in perpetuity, and not had to deal with chemical spray, and not even have to think about it, and then you can sit on your back porch and enjoy your weekend.
Let's start by putting one in the pool parking lot and see how that.
And have fireflies.
Right by my house.
Do they eat fireflies too? Do they eat-
No, they don't, fireflies taste
Firefly.
bad.
Just in there like.
The mosquito spray kills the fireflies.
Yeah,
Right.
all those things will kill the fireflies, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's letting nature do what nature is so good at.
No, I have a personal story because I got bit by a bug once and had
Right.
viral encephalitis.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and I had a seizure and all this stuff, and they never really, it's like, yeah, it's West Nile something, but you know, we don't know. I'm at the infectious disease doctor, we just don't know.
Right.
It's something we have, and it's wild. So when they're like, spray the bugs, I go, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm okay with it. I'm like,
Right, but what about like just
and
kill the
that's-
bugs?
That's exactly, so that's a part of the
Right.
bat. You know,
And yeah, and the
something.
downside is that some people think they're
They eat
creepy.
West Nile mosquitoes
And-
too, which
yeah,
is a positive
right.
thing, and it's possible that it could save lives.
Yeah.
Now, in addition to,
Right.
Well, and yeah, the downside is that if you do get bit by a bat, you have to go get a rabies shot, and that's not fun.
Right, don't pick up bats on the ground.
But also, right,
That's the,
And I actually just heard that if you wake up and there's a bat in your house and you've been sleeping, a bat can bite you.
You're supposed to- yeah, you won't even know.
sleeping,
You're supposed to
and
get the
you don't
shot.
know it. So you're supposed to go and get your rabies shot.
yep.
don't let the bats in the house, that's the other piece.
And right, when they have their
Oh,
own,
yeah, but- yeah.
when they have their own house, they don't want to go into your house.
Right.
It's when they're trying to find a nice place to
They live
live.
in cupolas, all
Right.
kinds of weird places in the whole
I
house.
had, in my previous house, I had a bat, came out to the sink, and I'm like, wait a minute, there wasn't anything in this pan I was soaking last night, why is it, and he drowned himself in a
Oh my
pan
gosh.
in the sink. And I was just like, my daughter was only like 5, and I'm like, open the screen door, open the screen door, don't ask me questions, just get up and open the screen door.
Ugh. But anyway, so that's why I want it high on the list, because we could have it done, you know, in theory, with a small allocation in the next budget, we could have the houses ready to go by next spring when they're ready to try and find
Yeah,
their
I mean, it's hard.
place to live.
Easy.
It's low hanging fruit, right?
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be awesome to be able to, you know, when summer hits, to be able to send a message out to the village and say, guess what, we're not doing mosquito spray this year because we can't find any mosquitoes.
we'd be building these things.
No, you buy them. There's companies in Ohio that make them, and they're like I said, it's like 2 feet by 3 feet by less than a foot, and you put them on a pole.
Spring, they would be they'd like be
No.
joining, but summer would really.
It takes a little time to
following
move in.
year.
They like, yeah, they start to move. It's not like they all like
Yeah.
have a sense and flock.
You have to find
So
it.
yeah, you start building them, but like I said, the
Then you post it
conditions.
on Facebook to let people know, where bats to know where to come.
But the conditions for the village
We need a map.
are like they like a large body of water that's open around it. So in the new section, like that's it. You put one of these on a pole by every lake, and that right there is 1,000 bats. You know, in a year or so.
Yeah, because the only time I think they spray is when they detect West Nile.
Right.
Correct?
And when you only have,
Yeah. when detect
you know,
West Nile.
1/50th of the mosquitoes, they're less likely to be having that and spread that. Anyway, so that's the plan. This could be a nice 1 hour short meeting tonight, and then we can all get ready for January, because there's gonna be some stuff to do.
I just had an idea about the curbs and sidewalks.
Okay.
So on the whole section, you have parking, there's no parking on the right side of the street. What about if we only put a sidewalk or curb on one side of the street, where that way cars would also block pedestrians? You didn't have to do both sides, like on the new section. But what about if you just did, I don't know, Minerva Lake Road, just on one side of the street? That way you're protected by cars, and you could have it like, say, this is the street, instead of, you know how like the old section, you have like 4 or 5 feet of grass or whatever, then the sidewalk, in the old section, you could just have the sidewalk right up to the street, and a little curb, that way,
So the pathway
they'll
is
smash the car
proposed,
before they hit you, I don't know, huh?
the pathway is proposed will be on one side of the street. Depending on how it, typically it'll be on the same side as the hydrants, right? So the.
Opposite side then.
Right, so it'll
Parking.
start on the north side. Also, because we don't control the south side right away on Minerva Lake Road, leaving this, so we we only control the midpoint because of where the apartments are.
Yeah.
That's actually City of Columbus, so we have to be on the north side to start. It also allows us, the larger proposal is given to Morpsey, which I attended a meeting the other week to, you know, to move it along, make sure it's on top of the list. It will also be in combination, Columbus seemed to like it too, because will be part of from the Allen Creek pathway. So from Corporate Drive, we'll be able to connect across the light there, and then we'll come south to us, because that's our jurisdiction at that point where the light is to the south, then come across the north side of Minerva Lake Road. Now, it'll have to jump in a couple places, just because, so we'll have to have a crossing point, maybe not depending on what we do with the North Lake, right? But the hydrants change on either side. And we also have our main pathway here too that we want to make sure it's part of the connector point. So there's a few things to plan out, but either way, it'll only be one side of the street, so, you know, and it'll be a 6 to 8 foot wide pathway depending on needs.
Oh, wow.
You know, so it goes all the way down to Cleveland, and then it will jog north, because to make both the connection all the way to 161, because Columbus has got plans along there, so we'll be able to improve our side of the right of way that never got improved properly, and there'll obviously be a linkage, because this is all CODA's money, so there'll be a linkage to the CMAQ station right up there as well too, because that's what all that money is being used for, is to interlink pathways, bike paths, and the bus system.
So does that need to be presented to P&Z and
No.
approve that as well?
No, you
I
do
think
not.
it's already,
But it's a
It's not gonna be,
village improvement.
it's not gonna be your money. You'll have a vote at the thing, and so that's how it is. I mean, I could be wrong, but the fact is it's pathway stuff, so you might be, you know, it'll be up to council at that point to accept the money, because the money's gonna fund, it's gonna be an inter-regional project on a very large scale, and we're part of that project. So you will have the ability as residents to vote for the levy come 2024. It'll be on the ballot in November.
To do that work,
To
do the pathway, or to do the.
to vote on the funding source. The funding source will be a sales tax increase, because it's CODA's money. Essentially, CODA is putting it back through the system to divvy out to all the municipalities and to but we have to have pre-approved projects in order to get our money. So that's an you can call it kind of inter-regional connectivity project, and we happen to have one that connects 2 state routes, Allen Creek Pathway, we have a CMAX on it, so all of that is interlinked, which makes us a very prime target to get that first round of money, because there's going to be $60 million a year if the voters approve it for Franklin County.
So you said it'll go across western from Corporate down Minerva Lake?
It will essentially the way that it's drawn out is that it'll come from Allen Creek. So where we were at our original temporary offices, back there's right now just a little bit of a walking path, but there's no pathway to get
Right,
people.
crossing Westerville Road, they will
Right.
actually have a light that a bike can activate a signal on.
Right, there's a light already there, which is
Right,
nice.
but the bike can't activate a signal at
Right,
that
so
light.
there has to be, because there's no matching pathway, there's no
Yeah.
matching point there, right? So you have to have the matching point on the other side signalized at that point, right? So that people can safely get across, which is
Right.
what you want. And so that makes it easier to already have a light in place,
They'll just add
Right,
signals so
correct.
that way.
much cheaper too, so it's a
Yeah.
nice easy way to
And
do
then
it.
come down Minerva Lake and
Right.
possibly maneuver
It'll
around
go-
through here a little bit, but
Yeah,
down to Cleveland
that has to be
Avenue
engineered
to
still,
the,
yeah.
yeah.
But conceptually, yeah, it goes from there all the way up to Cleveland, so you connect the 2 state routes, and then it'll connect up to 161, they're handling, not used to that yet.
Yeah,
Up to
we're in
161.
which direction are we right now?
Which will be good, because when Columbus redid a lot of the stuff, they skipped technically it's their right of way in front of our jurisdiction, so that was nice of them. So this will correct for that shenanigan. You know, and they're higher level people are at these meetings too, so that they're on board, which is good. So right now everybody's doing a little kumbaya. Columbus is going to get a lot of money out of it, because they've got the biggest section in Franklin County, right? The municipality size-wise.
So is that a regional vote, or is that just a local vote?
Franklin County, all Franklin County votes. Because CODA is a Franklin County, I mean, part of southern Delaware will vote too, but I guess because the city of Columbus, as a charter member of CODA, has extended it in there, right? And I think you get a little bit into, I don't know, it goes into Union at all. But Dublin's also a charter member, so I think part of Dublin that goes into Union. So anyone who's a charter member municipalities and along with Franklin County vote in that process. But it's primarily Franklin County. So everyone gets to vote on it.
So the property owners along Minerva Lake,
Just,
it's just gonna like, sorry, you're losing 6 to 8 feet of your front yard, is that?
they don't technically own that 6 to 8 feet of their front yard. Remember, it's right of way, so we don't, it's not a taking position, we're not taking any property. Everything, there's about 12 to 15 foot off of the pavement that is within right of way. So that's how that works. So, you know.
But it's the same as like we talked about on lakes, everybody still thinks it's
Right.
theirs.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's
So
something
that's-
you'll have to be educated. I mean, again, I think people, at the end of the day, we've tried to say this, we try to tell them, you know, this is, your apron's clearly not yours, you know, as we've
Yeah.
explained to them, you know, if anything within that area, just like where you have up to the sidewalk is right of way, and there's a reason for that. So the public actually can technically walk in the yards, and we've had to have a discussion with a couple of property owners, because they're like, you can't walk in my yard, I'm like, yes, they can.
Yeah.
You can legally walk because they're out of the street and not getting hit by cars. It's a safety issue, if nothing else. I mean, we want to get people off the street. It's a problem, you know, I don't, as a person that doesn't live in this neighborhood, it makes me nervous at night. Sometimes people are not wearing
Yep.
easy to see clothes, and they're in the road, and sometimes they're pushing a stroller, and they got a dog on a leash, you know, and it's like, whoa, okay, someone's right in the road, you know, and you know, I take my time, but I'm still surprised to find people in the dark in the road, and you can't see them well, so.
Now, did you say that the sidewalks go on the side of the fire hydrants or on the opposite side?
On the.
Typically, we would put them on the side of the fire hydrants, but that's just because of the north side. The fire hydrants on the north side over there, they switch here. I mean, there's a switching point. I think it's right in front of this building, but then maybe on the north side again, on the other side. But this is all stuff that I get engineered as to where the pathway goes. You want to try to keep the pathway on one side of the road as far as possible, so you don't have people making midpoint crossings. We would do it in intersections anyway, so there'll have to be some signalization. If we've got a lot of, you know, if we've got some, I anticipate a midpoint crossing over here on Minerva Lake, because when we connect Jordan Road, future pathway, you know, across whatever is there, lake, no lake, they're gonna have to connect to our section right over here by the South Lake. But again, that's to be future design and engineered.
Well, because why I asked about that was, because after we talked about this sidewalks before, and I've been walking the streets of the, Lakewood, Maplewood, down those, and thinking, JP said about having them on one side. And I was looking at that, there's some places where there's only like a couple yards that have a problem. Otherwise, you could take the first 6 or 8 feet and there wouldn't be any issue.
Force on Minerva
So-
Lake, they're fairly far set back. I mean, 30 feet, I think, if I recall the plat, in most cases. The building line is roughly about there.
Well, so what I was asking about the fire hydrants was because if you put the sidewalk on the side with the fire hydrants end up in the middle of the sidewalk. So I just thought that was kind of a problem because you're.
That's a good point.
The fire hydrants are right on the edge of pavement typically, so we
Well-
would be.
I guess you would have to
we
go
be-
right
There would
around.
be a separation between, there's gonna be a foot or two separation to where the pathway starts, just like there is here where we have a.
Oh,
tree
like a
line.
break, like a grass
Right,
break.
it's not gonna be,
Okay.
we're not gonna put a
Okay.
pathway right on the road.
Yeah, that's what I
because
thought, that's what I was thinking,
From
okay.
a safety standpoint, yeah, from a safety standpoint, you have to keep
That
it
makes
away
sense.
from the roadway.
I got you.
Anyways, because it keeps folks, because people are gonna, it's a multi-use path, right? So you're gonna have bikes, it makes it, you have a visual separation for people who are moving at a higher speed, gives them some safety rooms, so they're not automatically into the street, right? If they make a mistake. So that's typical design criteria. We don't, you want some separation.
It'd be
Is there a
cool
name
if
for
this
this
neighborhood
project?
we zigzagged
What's
around
that?
trees
Is there a
that
name for
way.
it?
We have no official name, you can call it the Minerva Lake,
Well,
Road.
maybe not us, but the city of
Pathway.
Columbus. I was like, I haven't heard of this one. I know about the Linden Trail thing.
Operation
So-
Hot
so
Dog. I
As
think
far
it's called.
as Morpsey's concerned, this is the Minerva Lake Pathway Project, that's it. It's the only thing at this point from.
And that's different from the Linden Trail from the.
Right, this is completely different. This is a conceptual project to make sure we have a placeholder to make sure we receive money should the voters pass this next fall. If the voters pass it, wonderful. Then
There's a big election next fall, right?
there's all kinds of things going on. There should be a lot of people going to the polls. So that's why it's on there.
I'm running.
Presidents and fireworks.
Literally.
Okay,
Carry on.
so, with that,
Ooh, I was gonna talk about the pool being paved. That was the next thing on the list.
So, you mean the parking lot?
Parking lot, yes.
Right.
Not the pool being paid, the pool parking lot being paid, sorry. I was thinking about removing that from the list, and here's why. There's talks about maybe redoing the whole pool entirely. So if that happens, then that's on the pool side of things, I would say, so
Right.
is that,
That's gonna be a voting thing.
yeah.
It's a very expensive project. So, rivals the lakes.
Maybe we can call it a pathway. No. It's too soon.
You have some native plans planned?
Yeah, I mean, these will all be things for, what I don't wanna do right now is have discussions that we wait a month and then all forget about, right? So, I think if we call it a year and then, please pay attention to anything council is doing with regards to lakes, and then in January we'll get started and, start doing some good green space planning and see if we can get this comprehensive plan, hopefully next year, to council, so that when these issues come up, they know
I can,
it's already been discussed, it's already been thought about.
email you guys when I find out some news. Is it right down the street?
Have you listened to that like hour and a half presentation at all?
On the lakes?
Yeah.
I did, yeah. I need to go back and listen to it again after this.
It was-
Yeah.
They posted on the village's website as well, so
Yeah.
people be aware, I'm sure no one's seen it. Cause,
I kind of like a side note, which I just think like whether you guys would have, so as part of
It was an account.
the redevelopment of that soccer field,
Okay?
have they any talk in the village about sound from there?
Soccer field.
Yeah, where that Kilbourne, where they're redeveloping that,
Oh, by
and part of this
AEP.
pathway.
about behind AEP.
I'm not familiar with this.
Okay, so, they used to call it the clearing or whatever.
Right?
But now AEP, what's next to the AEP is basically these huge soccer fields, and they butt.
That's where the
up
Hart
back-
building is.
Yeah, and they butt up to
City
the back of
campus
the.
stuff?
the
That's-
Yeah,
that's-
City
I got a whole
Columbus is
soapbox on this one I can get up on.
yeah, City
This is what
Columbus is
Columbus
redeveloped and it
Crew,
has.
this is what Historic Crew Stadium was by law supposed to be, but instead they decided to do nothing and remodel this thing over here.
Notified loud as
I'm
hell.
confused. Is it gonna be Cruz practice fields?
No,
No,
it's going to
It's
have
gonna be
substance,
community,
if anything.
like legal practice fields. They're redeveloping the whole thing. It's
Nobody-
part of
nobody
that.
likes this or something? I don't.
I don't like it.
It's just, it's heavy traffic
People don't
around.
like stuff these days.
Well, this, I have problems with Columbus.
Yes. Well,
My question in
they
regards to
surround us.
that is, currently, with the old fields, on the weekends, I can hear the ice cream trucks constantly
Bing, 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 bing.
from there. Or there would be on Sundays, there's like leagues that would have, I think they'd have more of a party atmosphere and you would hear music. And it carries over to like Black Sycamore Pond.
Yeah, cause that's in your backyard basically.
It carries-
One day, one Sunday, we're like, where is this coming from? And we drove over there. When you're over there, we had our windows down, we're driving the streets over there, I'm like, I don't hear a thing.
I have no, this is the first time in all my
I
years
don't
I've
hear
heard
a
this.
thing. But,
Yeah.
so I don't know if it's because of the creek and it travels down.
Interesting.
It is, yeah, it's loud. You can, I
Do
can
you
hear,
know-
yeah, you hear them in the morning when they have a soccer game, somebody.
And you hear them in the evening, and I'm just wondering when that gets redeveloped, as to who would we like
Complain to?
just make awareness, or
Yeah.
is the city of Columbus looking at sound as to how it's gonna affect us here?
That's,
No, they do not, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I
that's-
didn't-
that's just
not gonna.
My only real complaint.
well,
is
but
that
there's no
what
reason
time
not
is
to,
that stuff?
Right time it's
not to
because
raise
there
a
were
stink
times
about
that
it,
it's going on at 10 o'clock.
proactively. Who
Yeah,
would,
you sometimes it'll show up right
I'll
at 10.
save you
There's been times I've heard
trouble.
it at midnight.
We have raised things about various things and
Yeah.
we get pointed to our lake to jump into.
well, tell us who,
Tell us to take care of our lake, give us somebody to take care of our lake.
Tell us
I wish
who-
much luck with Columbus's fiefdoms, because I have a lot of experience with them on the public and private side.
yeah,
It can be
tell us
very
who,
difficult.
tell us who we can.
That's the Parks and
appeal to.
Recreation's folks.
Okay.
And so
Parks and Recreation,
they're definitively gonna tell you to jump in the lake, 'cause that's
But
their whole
then,
life,
like,
that's their
if you
whole
at least
life.
like say, like, we're like in the like, just.
Well, it could also be, if anybody knows somebody on Columbus
So,
City
yeah.
Council who could say,
Yeah.
hey, listen,
Yeah, but
we know we're not you, but
Yeah.
a little professional courtesy here, your projects are screwed with our neighborhood.
Yeah.
A lot of it has to do
Yeah,
with
not
Grove
gonna-
Park is such a quiet neighborhood. that we're quieter than, I mean, literally anywhere else, so
You
you're
are.
gonna hear all kinds of
I mean, I get,
It's loud.
Yeah.
It's-
I really think it is like somehow
can't hear it in the house.
Well,
we
you're actually in better
Yeah.
luck, I'll tell you this, you're better luck asking for a sound mitigation, like a giant wall, than you are to say, control your people. I think.
oh yeah, that's what I think the solution is, would be
You'll have
to
something-
see if there's not a wall or something they can put up.
Yeah, just an awareness that.
Yeah.
hey,
I mean, that's an
I
easy,
can
I'll be
tell you
honest with you,
right
that's an
now.
easier ask than asking them
You wanna-
to change their behavior.
Well, of course, I don't, yeah, there, I don't,
10 PM maybe, and not go to midnight.
Nobody has it
Yeah.
worse than the folks on.
They have a
because
lot
they
of
got
demand
that
for the fields,
haunted house
there's
back
there's
there.
an adult leagues, I mean, they have kids
They
in
have
the
to get
day
a
and
haunted house
adults at
in that
night.
siren.
yeah, but if they can put up a wall for a couple grand and make us go away, then
$100,000.
I get told no for a living. I have no problem asking somebody something and being told, you know, yeah, 10 people tell me no, and then one of them says maybe, and I get paid for it, so.
I like some sound mitigation in this room, this echo is drives me.
There's-
But it's great, what I understand is it's great, yeah, we've talked about that, but it's great, apparently, the sound is great for recording and online.
It is much, it's
People
much
say it's
better.
wonderful.
Facebook, you can never listen to the meetings. You can, I would always just listen to audio
Yeah,
of the meetings because you would hear them so much better, but now it is.
Yeah,
if you put some soft treatment on the back wall, it would actually help a lot.
right, so we're talking,
Yeah,
Hang some quilts,
right, hang some quilts, we'll have some quilts, yeah, quilt, yeah.
Fabric.
right? Somebody's gotta have
Don't-
a quilt that somebody who lived in Minerva Park made back in the day.
That's your grandma.
All right, is there any other business?
Just a note for the thing with the pathways, this is not until the voters pass, and it'll be a discussion item as 2025. It'll be the soonest you hear from us about anything that goes on, because it's gonna have to be engineered, and so I'll see you in 2025. If it passes in next year.
It's gonna be on it in 2024.
It's gonna be a CODA sales tax, related to interconnectivity to everything in the Franklin County area.
2024.
Right, in November's elections.
And it's gotta pass, you're gonna have to pass a sales tax.
Right, and it's for the whole region. So, if it passes, great, then we get money. Not only that money, we'll have money, there'll be money for decades to come. It's a perpetual sales tax raise that goes right back into infrastructure reinvestment, which specifically is pathways, bikeways, and those kind of things. So once that passes, yeah, we have a placeholder to make sure we get money. But at that point forward, then people can seriously talk, like we'll have a funding source forever for pathways. And then you can put forward, year to year, we can put in projects. Hey, I want a pathway around this lake. Hey, I want, sidewalks. We can take it to the voters at that point and we can have a poll and say, hey, do you guys want sidewalks in this part of the neighborhood? Some people may say no. And some people may say, yeah, I want sidewalks over here. The cul-de-sacs maybe no.
Where would you like sidewalks, the
Right.
north side or the south side?
Right, and honestly, that'll be up to folks at that time, and that'll be year after year, and honestly, we'll be out, because there's only so many places you can put down sidewalks and pathways, right? I mean, we're a park, and it's a limited, for us it's limited, but you'll have that ability. So if it passes, you'll have the ability, which is to plan that out, and we'll have a funding source, which is good. So, do a lot, do a little, doesn't matter, you at least have the option to look at it.
Any further business?
Nope.
Thanks for a good year, everybody.
Yes.
We'll see you all when the mayor says so.
so we'll know that meeting and data will be picked up.
Yeah, she'll send it out, she's recording.